All right, guys. Well, welcome back to the Cardboard Cellar Championship Series number 3. And this is the semifinals. On the left, we've got Phill Zell. On the right, we've got Frank Natoli. In the booth, I've got my good friend, Jared Ellenberger.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us yet again for the semifinals here. Got some familiar faces around the top tables. Frank's been dominating this tournament series since its inception, and Phill, no stranger to the spotlight himself.
Yeah, good to see Phill out, as we kind of mentioned in the prior rounds. And without spoiling stuff, to advance, yeah, he kind of crushed this one. So kind of see how he
For
does here in
sure.
the end of it, see if he can bring it all home.
For sure. He's got a lot of reps with these Eldrazi decks and these Karn the Great Creator decks, and it really shows in how he knows to get exactly the right hate piece and how to manage his lands just perfectly to scale with the Eldrazi there.
Yeah, and really appreciate these guys realigning the camera for us going into this round and having everything set very nicely. So we have life back. We've got our match counter, and yeah, can see most of the gameplay. So exciting. Going to be an exciting match. These two are great.
All right, let's see how our players opening sevens treat them. Apologize if you have a little bit of noise in my background. I'm going to keep myself muted when I can, but hopefully both players have viable starting hands here.
All right, Frank revealing to the camera, so appreciate that as well. Looks like we got some stuff to work with. Couple Emeries. Don't was that looks like two Tamios maybe with a Mox.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah,
saw a couple of Tamios in there. Didn't look like much in the way of lands.
no,
So
looked
that
like one
one's going to
mountain.
be going back.
I see on Phil's side, all I could see was a Relic of Progenitus. That's all I could see, but Phill once again coming in clutch with that mole counter, so appreciate that.
Relic of Progenitus with some backup pressure might be just exactly what Phil's looking for here. Um, his deck lines up well, I think, against this Temur Breach deck with Karn the Great Creator's static ability, basically shutting down the combo. Um, Phil will be reduced to being a large construct token or as a saga deck. That's plenty powerful, but I don't know that it matches up well into large Eldrazi as well.
Yeah, never seen this interaction yet. So at the time of this tournament, at least, so a little curious on how it's going to go, but looks like Frank's got what he wants, and we're off rolling. A little surveil to start.
Yeah, I had the ability to pick Phil's brain about the matchup a little bit after round two, as we were talking about his preparation for the RCQ. And this deck is one of the main reasons that he was on his pet deck of the Karn the Great Creator Eldrazi.
And a main board chalice coming down. That's huge right there, and a relic on top. Pretty solid start for Phill here. Let's see what Frank's turn two. Do see the Haywire Might, which is great.
Yeah, Frank definitely fighting the good fight here through two hate pieces right off the start. We'll see what pressure Phil has to back it up with, but Frank may be able to pull through what is a great opener from Phil for this matchup.
Yeah, and I think with the Urza Saga, I believe that's able to kind of push through the Chalice of the Void as well. Because you don't actually have to cast it, so it just comes out. I think that's a nice little turnaround, wrap around to get around it.
Definitely, and that Chalice may even fall victim to this Haywire Might. I think we saw that he only plays one Haywire Might in the main, um, but that he could blow up with the Haywire Might and then recast it again off a Breach very easily to deal with multiple pieces of artifact hate. So really, Phil, the onus is on Phil to go ahead and get some pressure on the board, which looks like he's going to be able to do so in this Thought Knot Seer coming down.
Yeah, and correct. Looking at the deck list now, Frank does only play that one of the Haywire might in the main.
That Galvanic Blast a bit sad, wishing there were a couple more artifacts on the battlefield to deal with that Thought Knot Seer before revealing the hand here. I think Phill went ahead and left it there. So if Frank's able to peel a couple artifacts, he'll maybe looking for a second piece of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, we just can't count Frank out in this match. This deck just continues to push through hate. And when we finished our match from round 5, we were talking about it, and he just said that it's so resilient and it has answers to basically everything I can think of. So, so far, it's shown that.
For sure. Definitely a testament to how grindy this breach deck is, that we're looking at one of the matchups that is most in favor of the opponent, with one of the hands that has to line up almost perfectly for this matchup, and we're still just piecing together a way the breach deck can grind right through it.
Right. And I'm assuming out of the two, the Chalice and the Relic, definitely would think the Chalice would be the target here if he does decide to pop that Haywire Might.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you're on the breach plan, you almost want to hit the relic first, can't interfere with your breach to bring back Haywire Might. But there's, unless Phill taps out, there's an opportunity for him to respond anyway. Um, so you're gonna
So
have to work yourself into the correct sequence there, and work Phill into a correct sequence to allow you to take them both out.
I guess that makes sense because I was thinking that it only was bringing back his other stuff. I'm not even thinking about it bringing back the Haywire Might. So yeah, no, it makes complete sense. So I guess yeah, pop the Relic first and then bring it back and repeat, rinse, repeat. Shows how much I don't know that deck right now.
Well, it's just a testament to the power of the selection mechanic. Whenever you're able to turn your graveyard into basically a second hand, all of those resources just become options, and so many combinations open up. Um, that's why for years Snapcaster was so dominant in the format, that you had all the powerful instants and sorceries, and your graveyard was just a plethora of options. But looking like our players are settling into a nice grindy game here. Urza Saga sitting there ready to expand Frank's board, and that Thought Knot Seer should be able to attack in and pressure the Scions or Frank's life total.
Ooh, we see our first K command of the match.
And notably, Frank does not have any green mana up, or maybe even green mana at all. I can't quite tell what that one land is. So Phill can exile this Haywire Might with no fear of losing either of his two hate pieces at the moment.
Yeah, and that's an Urza Saga, so that's the only thing looks like available at the moment. That is
Yeah,
Scion, I guess, but doesn't seem like any
yeah,
colored
he
mana.
okay. Yeah, he tapped his green source for that Malevolent Rumble. Now that I'm double checking his lands there, but it looks like the Kozilek's command did not go after the Haywire Might. Um,
Yeah, I think he's just trying to build and search and continue to beat in with his big body that's already out there.
Yeah, and maybe searching for a Karn the Great Creator, and notably he made 4 Scions, so if he had found it right there, he could have cast it the same turn and shut down that Haywire Might from activating its ability as well. So that may have been the thought process there as to why not exile the Haywire Might. You can make it obsolete if you find your Karn.
Right. Or maybe hoping he kind of gets in a spot where he has to chump with it and then he can pop the relic and that way breach isn't effective and being able to bring it back. Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to talk with him. He's the master of the Eldrazi.
For sure. Lots of different options here. But I think still looking quite solid in Phil's favor at the moment as Emery comes down and continues to expand Frank's graveyard.
Frank doing some digging and see that grinding station in hand. And
Relic.
Phill gonna piece away little by little. It's crazy
I
just how
think
fast that Frank can actually put cards in his graveyard, though.
yes, for sure. Between the Malevolent Rumbles, the Emerys, that's a ton of mill in itself. And if you get a grinding station online, that just adds to it. Looks
Mm-hmm.
like Frank has a grinding station in hand along with a Tameo, and I think that's a breach in the center. Am I seeing that correctly?
I think it's a Galvanic Blast.
Oh,
So Tameo, Grinding Station, and the Galvanic Blast.
yep. And that Galvanic Blast will be coming online this turn with Urza's Saga ticking up to 3. So that Thought Not Seer not likely long for this world, although it not the main source of pressure now as Phil's played the Seven Deadly Sins card. I have no idea what the name of that Eldrazi actually is.
Oh yeah, I know. I know you're talking about like the 7 everything.
Yes.
Yeah,
Ward 7, 7 abilities, 7 mana, 7 power, 7 toughness.
whole lot of 7 nonsense.
Yep. And Frank is pretty much priced into dealing with this Thought Not Seer this turn. He could start to chump, but with his life total being at 11 here, he's about to be in danger of either having to Galvanic Blast or start to get a little frisky with his constructs.
And I believe the name of that card is Sire of the 7 Deaths.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah,
I had to look that one up. I forgot it.
I was not going to get that one, that's for sure.
Was not first on my list. Great card nonetheless. So it looks like Frank moving forward, gonna pop the relic.
And that Haywire Mite should be in the graveyard at the time because the sacrifice is a part of the cost. Yeah, so it should be exiled as well.
Keeping a good game state. Great job, guys. Better than I could do.
And that's such a critical piece to maintain right there, too, because like we talked about, a breach allowing that to come back and deal with multiple hate elements from Phill if that's handled incorrectly.
Right. That could be the huge differentiating factor there. Frank trying to
I
play.
wonder. I don't know exactly how Emery is worded. I'm guessing you still have to obey timing restrictions on the cast, but I wonder if he could have activated Emery in response to the relic to try to recast that Haywire Might. I'd have to read exactly how Emery's phrased.
I'm also not quite certain. It's been a long time since I've even. It's a lot of text on Emery.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have to obey timing restrictions with Emery. I don't recall people playing artifacts on my turn at any point, so that's likely the case. We're up to the 14 deadly sins now, for those of
And
you
that's a
keeping
scoop.
track.
And it does look like it says timing rules still apply. So
Okay, great. Well, that match one played out exactly how Phill outlined it. A couple of hate pieces in the main, not even finding the Karn the Great Creator, but basically backing up the multiple hate pieces with some large Eldrazi to make the constructs obsolete. And although Frank wasn't out of it at any point in time, Phill held control of that game throughout.
yeah, and Phill had a great starter against Frank. Had everything that he really needed and just kind of executed at the end. Now here's Frank's sideboard. What are we thinking's coming in here?
The consigned memories have to be a auto include now. Think also bringing in your nature's claims and your Um, what is the name of that
The
one?
wear
Wear
down.
Down. I think all those great, great options. Beseju probably also another good option. Swan Song's the big question mark to me whether you want that or not. What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I definitely think Consign, once again, not being a Teamer Breach player, nor having seen too much of it to this point of the tournament. I think, do we have an argument for Boseju?
Yeah, I think Beseju could be in that same conversation with the Nature's Claims and the Wear Down. I'm a big fan of playing extra land, so anytime you can board one in, I'm definitely there for it.
Yeah, I don't know if Swan Song comes in. I don't know how much he really wants to come off of his main attempt and his main strategic plan, but I guess Phil's just crushing out so many land and so many big things to start that I guess I don't know if Boseiju really. Nah, I guess it does take out the artifacts. I mean, I feel like I would probably bring in the enchantment artifact hate and kind of go
Yeah,
go from there.
Swan Song might be a play versus draw decision. If you have the ability to tag the relic or the chalice early on, maybe when you're on the play, you bring it in. When you're on the draw, you won't have that ability, so you might want to just leave it in the board for being on the draw. Frank is on the play here, I assume, so
Yeah, I think
maybe there's a chance we'll see it in there.
I know that consign is 100% has to come in or should come in, but all right. And then we got Phill over here side. And
Lots of good things here. I think most of them are staying in the board because of the Karn the Great creators. I could see bringing in maybe an engineered explosives as a way of buying yourself some time because it's not really the piece that you want to go get with your Karn, but it is valuable um, to slow the game down to make sure you have time to Karn.
yeah,
Maybe same with Haywire Might as well.
I feel like personally here probably like Soulless Jailer and the Stone Brain.
The Stonebrain, I think, just exiles creatures, right?
Is it search target of the graveyard hand for up to 4 cards with that name? No, so
Oh, I have no idea what that card does.
yeah,
Apparently,
so it just
this is surgical extraction.
basically for search target opponent's
Huh.
graveyard hand and library for up to 4 cards with that name and exile them. That player shuffles, then draws a card for each card exiled that way. So I mean, if you just name Breach or you name Opal, or I mean, shoot, Grape Shot, I guess. So I feel like Stone Brain's probably coming in, Soulless Jailer, but curious to see. I feel
Yeah,
like,
and you could board in some number of stone brains. Like you could board in two and leave one for the Karn and the board. Really, this is another perfect example of Phil knowing exactly what his game plan is, having the experience with the Karn the Creator decks. We can theorize all day long, but we don't have the reps to say for certain which ones are optimal to bring in. But his board looks well prepared for the matchup. So.
right, I could definitely agree with probably the smartest thing to leave at least one on the side for that Karn piece. Now, I feel like the Trinisphere definitely stays on the side. Same thing. Get the Karn instead of the Trinisphere. And then, obviously go get it if you need it. But
Yeah, it's a weird balance of, in my mind, you want your cheapest and your best hate pieces to stay in the board, and then you want your intermediate hate pieces in the deck. But you also don't want to dilute your main game plan too hard either. So we'll see how it plays out.
yep, and we already see that consign is in. So it's the one thing we did know is 100% going to come in. Going to see a Jace, Mox Opal, but the Jace looks like it was being shipped away.
Yes, I did. He have a blue mana source in that opening hand.
I did not see that, but looks like a Devoured Destiny already coming in.
Just making the Eldrazi decks even more consistent by giving them a free ability to scry at the beginning of every game and comboing perfectly with the new Eldrazi land as well.
I question Wizards of the Coast all the time.
Somebody there loves Eldrazi, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's somebody on the payroll up there for sure. All right.
One of the Eldrazi cards I always loved, well, except for when I'm getting beat down by it, but Eldrazi Mimic is one that I never see played
Oh
anymore.
yeah, yeah. That when the Reality Smasher comes down or a Thought Not Seer was always Huge big turn.
Exactly. But I guess that was more in the Eldrazi winter when they were more aggressive Eldrazi decks.
Well, at least Thought Not Seers sort of sticking around. Obviously, R.I.P. to Reality Smasher.
Right.
Haven't seen one of those since 2014, 16.
All right. Both our players starting off with some artifacts. Phill with two, showing Frank who the artifact deck is.
Yeah, and once again, right back at it with the two great pieces of hate. Frank was tapped out, so no consign in on that. But
Well, Frank wasn't tapped out. That blue land was available, and I am surprised he didn't.
oh,
Um,
I wasn't even thinking. Yeah, I
I'm
wonder.
surprised that both of those made it down. I don't know which one you prioritize. I'd probably prioritize the relic, I think, but I'm surprised that they both made it down.
I wonder if he just has the removal in hand that we can't see. So
That's quite
he's
possible.
thinking about just removing the one and then waiting for the K command.
Yeah, I think that is a nature's claim right beside that breach, um, if I'm not mistaken. So that could be his plan here.
Yeah, it looks like it. So he's probably thinking that, and then he's like, I want to take out that K command to not allow Phill to get any additional resource or value off of it.
Yep, and he does have the wildwood for his green source here, so it's going to be a turn. Um, but he will be able to cast that nature's claim. I wonder if his plan is just to hold the consign for the threat, just buy himself more time. As Phill goes ahead and cycles the relic.
That shifting woodland is an interesting card as well. Having to have delirium to change, but in these graveyard decks makes such a big difference if you can get it off to copy anything. Ooh, and we see a second chalice come down. So relic goes away. Frank now saying I need to take that.
Yeah, for sure. What you were saying about the shifting woodland, I often forget that it's delirium based. I don't even think to check delirium based on a land's ability. That may have played a role maybe in the quarterfinals when we were discussing that. I didn't even think to check if Frank had delirium at that point in time.
Yeah, I had to check as Ryan with Amulet was playing it. So I definitely had to check his, and we did actually catch that he did not have delirium, so was not able to move forward. But yeah, so
Yeah.
something to be on the lookout for that card. But I always forget the delirium piece of it as well.
Yep. So much text on these new cards. I miss the simple old days of hexproof 2/2 that puts a 4/4 angel into play. I mean, it's that's where it's at.
I mean, I was more of the, hey, you put a creature out, give me my life.
Yes, for sure. The good old days and back in 2014 modern.
Yeah, miss those days. R.I.P. Long gone. Creature based
Yep.
decks were phased out, except for Boros Energy now.
Yeah, there's a good bit of powerful creatures. It's just a matter of finding the right time in the meta for it. As Frank brings out a Haywire Mite, getting ready to likely take care of that Chalice as the only standing hate piece for his combo here at the moment. We could see him go off here shortly. Phill cracked that relic, probably searching for his third land drop there, but it might come back to bite him. We'll see.
Yeah, know that Frank definitely has that nature's claim. He's got the breach in hand, so definitely has the ability to pop off at any point here. Ooh, okay. Well,
Good.
kind of shifted some stuff there, but Frank's still with some removal.
But that notably did eat up Phil's entire turn. So if Frank finds a um, a red source here, Phil's not out of the woods yet.
Yeah,
He
and that
could follow up
chalice.
with a
Yeah,
red source, a Mishra's Bauble. I think he has a Mox Amber in his hand as well, so that Mox Opal gets turned on right away, and now the Amber would be turned on. I think we're one red source away from Frank being able to go for the combo next turn.
yeah. I was gonna say as soon as he gets rid of that, obviously the chalice holding off the the bobble and the mox, but you can barely
I
see
didn't.
on the left side, but that is a beautiful forest from Phill. A little dark on camera.
Oh yeah, all of Phil's deck or all of Phil's cards, it should be said, are the absolute pinnacle of his stylings of printings of the cards and just absolute beautiful selections. Although I do have to say, mixing up your Tron lands, not a big fan of, but I know it's perfect for his style.
Got some nice full art coming down here. I think Frank's still deciding if he wants to pop this claim now or what. Now that he sees the Myco spawn has come down. Already seen a K command, so
And notably, Phil not kicking that micro spawn. He's at 5 mana right now. Is it? It's 6 to kick it, isn't it?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because 4 and then, yeah.
All right, Phil, or sorry, Frank unlocking his hand here, playing the Mishra's Bauble and the Mox, both of which are now online, both of his Moxen. So he's up to 4 mana, making an additional artifact here in this clue. Um, and I think he's a grinding station away from being able to combo off. I don't know if that's in his hand yet or not.
Yep, one step closer. See what Phill has up. We can't see how many cards Phill has in hand, but he's going to get bobbled here. And it looks like an Eldrazi Temple. Is it Frank with another Nature's Claim in hand? Is that what like I'm seeing?
I didn't get a good look at it here, but I think Phil's out of hate pieces anyway. I mean, it'll buy him plenty of time if another hate piece does come down. But I think Frank is, or sorry, Phill is on the go as fast as we can plan at this point. Although once again, choosing not to kick the microspawn. Um,
What if he's
does that
holding?
mean he's holding up Cake Man?
That's what in my thought. I believe so. That's the only thing I could think of that he would be holding out for, and not kicking that to ramp himself.
Cake Man only hits creatures, right? Unless I'm losing it. Let me look that up real quick.
Wait on confirmation of the K command. It's got a lot of text to it for sure, just like everything else.
Yep. I make the mistake of using Gatherer rather than something like Scryfall, so it takes 30 seconds to load it and then has 3 pop ups. Yeah, it's exile target creature. Oh, it's exile up to X cards from target graveyard. That's probably the mode he's holding on to.
Yep, looks like. But it looks like we're tapped out here. Thought Not Seer comes down, tries to take, or does take, the breach.
So yeah, Phil's shields down. If Frank can find another underworld breach or and a grinding station, um, he could combo off this turn. He's got a couple of draws at it. Might okay, flame. Okay, yeah. I'd almost be tempted to bobble myself first to see if I was going to get there without using 3 mana to do so, because you could just crack the clue for 2.
Right.
Um,
Oh, I think he's wanting to flip that Tameo.
fair, that reduces the clock on him considerably at this point. Each of those micro spawns going down to just 1 power on attacks.
Yeah, Tameo is such a good card. I mean,
Yeah, definitely. It's a interesting variation on the not the buff, whatever the opposite of that is, but the decrease in power on attacks. We've seen planeswalkers that have that over and over again. The Jace Architect of Thought, those kind of things. It's a formula that's been around for a while, but hasn't really been able to take hold in modern. I think the fact that it's a +2 on a planeswalker with very little investment needed means that negative power trigger is effective enough to keep it around.
Right. So it looks like we do have two of the grinding station in the yard now. We've got some bobbling going. Nature's Claim and Tamio in hand. Let's see what
Bobbles. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
was say see what Phill can pull out here with all that mana, and we okay going for Devour.
Devour coming down, dealing with Emery to prevent getting back those grinding stations for the moment.
Probably taking Tamio out. Yeah.
Did Tamio plus?
Tamio was at 4.
Which is a plus, which means that those, unless I'm misunderstanding, those should only have 1 power each. So
Um,
I think Tamio should still be around.
I thought it was -1, -0, maybe.
Oh, and then they'd be 2 power each. I thought it was -2, -0.
Clarification here. Minus
Um,
minus
I'm
one,
on
-0.
gather.
-1, -1, -0.
Okay, cool.
Phill definitely has the bodies, but Frank
Yeah.
is ready to roll on that breach.
Still notably missing red mana, although Emery will get him there off of his mocks. But he has yet to find a land capable of producing red mana, so he has to keep those mocks active. Um, I guess the mox opal is active because of that clue as well.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say. I
Um,
think the clues activating Opal.
yep, fair enough.
Okay, see another Tamio come down here. Phill once again all that mana dressed up. Let's see where he's gonna go with it. On both sides. I mean, just scary because you just never know what the Eldrazi deck is gonna drop down, and out there comes that Stone Brain.
Yep, massive. Probably the final nail in the coffin here is Phil's well ahead on board. Going to be able to take the combo potential out here with this search effect and start beating in for what is that 12 a turn
Yep, and here it goes. I wonder if he's just going breach or
or grinding station. um,
I feel like
I think you go breach.
yeah, I think you have to go breach because the grape shot. He can just sit there and just continue, um, just sit there and play and grape shot. Oh, he is going grinding station. Maybe we're incorrect. Maybe we don't know what we're talking about.
What my thought process with the breach was that it gives him more options, whereas grinding station, it's necessary to have the repeated mill effect to enable the breach,
Right.
but a breach could buy him a unholy heat or a galvanic blast or something to deal with these creatures. Um, but I'm sure there's Phill doesn't make decisions for no reason. He has
Right.
something in mind why he's going after that grinding station.
Right. Method behind the madness completely. I'd be curious to once again pick his brain about it and maybe have some remembrance of where he was at that moment and what he had in hand.
Definitely.
Maybe we'll find out soon.
A big swing here for 12. I'm curious to find out if Frank is going to take it, or it looks like he's lining up a chump of some kind. Thinking of Frank's outs here, I am not coming up with much because any tokens are at least 2 turns away. Construct tokens, that is. And they're not even going to be big enough if they do come down. Um,
Yeah, I'm
the
wondering.
combos offline.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he just tries to continuously pop things out of his graveyard to then maybe try to grape shot the creatures out and then establish something from there. But yeah, I'm not certain here.
I guess maybe the Jace. The Jace might be
Oh yeah.
um, his one out that's left. Although his library looks pretty stacked still. I'm guessing there's at least 25 cards in there. I don't think without the grinding station combo going, I don't think there's any way he's going to be able to mill himself down far enough with that Jace. So I think we are going to be seeing Phill advance to the finals here in the next couple of turns, unless Frank has a rabbit to pull out of his hat that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, and I'm only seeing the one Jace, so
And we know it went to the bottom. I don't think Frank has fetched at all during this game. So that Jace is all the way at the bottom, very last card, which is a good place for that Jace, but not in this situation. Oh, I think he had an Urza Saga at one point, so the Jace is somewhere in the deck, or at least random, not just on the bottom. And there's a fetch land to guarantee it. Breach incoming. We'll see what Frank can put together here.
yeah, super curious on what's about to happen next for sure.
I guess in its worst case, you get to Emery to put another blocker out, refuel your graveyard off the Emery, grab a Tameo maybe as well. You just keep putting up chump blockers for a bit here and try to dig down to that Jace. Um, I don't know what other removal he still has in the deck to buy himself some time.
I was gonna say, are we thinking storm counter here?
Storm count is at 2, 3.
Oh yeah, three because of the breach. Yeah.
Yep, 4 now. I really think he needs to find a way to start milling some cards into his graveyard. He's passed up a couple of cards that can do it. He might be eyeing that Rumble next. Um,
Plenty
nature,
of plenty of artifacts here.
yeah, for sure. Looked like a Nature's Claim in hand. That's another way of adding 2 cards to your graveyard, um, getting yourself some life, and adding to your storm count if you need to get really creative. Searching with that Tarn. Taking up a breeding pool to go down a couple more life.
Hmm. I'm wondering if he's thinking of playing Emery to have the blocker and put more into his graveyard.
He needs 2 blockers at this point in time. I could definitely see playing Emery because, like you said, it does mill you. You could sack both of those Mishra's Baubles to keep going as well. Um, but I think that probably the Tameo needs to come back to be a chump blocker because the larger of those 2 Eldrazi is lethal on its own, and the combination of the other 2 are lethal. Um,
Now he can do a nature's claim on himself, I guess.
True.
Gain that 4 life.
Yep. So he could block the larger one and then Nature's Claim himself. And our storm count's got to be up to 5 or 6 at this point.
And we do see
And
the
there is a
great
great
shot.
shot.
Yeah, that's huge. That's, like I said, I think that's the only thing that I see. He continues to string some of this and then can knock out Phil's board.
They're counting up Storm now as well.
I think we're at 4.
We've got 2 Baubles, an Emery, a Mox Opal for 4. The Underworld Breach itself is 5. That's all I remember being cast.
I thought the
So
opal, or did he cast a second one and grave it?
he did cast 1 Opal.
Okay.
Maybe there was a second one in there too. I'm not 100% sure. At least 1 Opal, both Baubles, and the Emery, and the original Breach. See where they end up. They end up with 1 ground Pokemon thing.
That's fighting energy, you uncultured
Fighting
person.
energy. Okay. Yep. Hey, I played Pokemon the way you played Magic when you first started. I made up the rules as I went, or your cousin teaching you, or whoever.
Yep, good old days back in the Scourge and earlier, where everything was a Kavu back then.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of my first rares was Thorn Elemental, and that was from 7th edition.
Do you still remember what it does?
Yeah, it basically assigns its damage as though it weren't blocked, and it was a 7/7 body for 7 drop.
All right.
Something like that, 5 or 7. And then I know my 2 other go-tos were Trained Ogre, excuse me, and Visordrix, which was just a 6/6 rabbit for like a 6 drop. And then the Trained Ogre was a 6 drop 6/6, I believe.
Big old green beaters. It sounds like a good way to play Magic to me.
Yep, what a time. It was sick. Two red, 4, something like that. And then, yep, it was tabletop, and they would beat down.
Frank getting ready to cast another spell here. I think he's targeting that Malevolent Rumble.
And Phill finally bringing in that storm counter up top with the die.
I can't quite make that out, but pretty sure we're at 7.
That's what it looks like. Seems to be the correct count. I'm gonna need Frank to hurry up though.
We know you're fighting for your life there, Frank, but we're gonna come poke you in the back and tell you to play faster. We're just kidding.
Maybe. Nope, this match definitely went on for a pretty long while, and I think this game went on for a pretty long while, but rightfully so. They're both playing really well, and Frank just has so many things to do.
Another Malevolent Rumble coming in here, it looks like. And then he's going to have to bring that Mox back at least one more time to have some colored mana to work with. Bringing the other Mox back.
Appreciate Frank for keeping his graveyard so pristine here so we can watch with him and kind of make decisions with him, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And notably, that Mox coming back into his hand allows him to play that to generate some mana and add another card to his graveyard. So, still firing on all cylinders here. I wonder at this point if Phill is beginning to regret the decision to go after the underworld or the grinding station instead of the underworld breach.
I definitely think in my mind that's where I'm going. But once again, I would love to hear from Phill and where he was at, what he had, and probably the best. It was probably the best card in that situation.
Yep. So Frank's probably floating a red mana here before casting this Mox. And I think if we can cast, so that Mox is 9, another Grape Shot would be 10, and then a casting Grape Shot again if he has the mana for it.
Yeah,
Because
Frank pulling it together off of 5 life, and
he has one red floating. He needs to cast another Mox, and he can still sacrifice those Mishra's Baubles to make sure he doesn't run out of cards in the graveyard. I'm not quite sure how many Eldrazi Scions he has. I think there's 2 sitting there. So I think all he needs to do is cast another Mox, go up a second red mana, and then cast 2 Grape Shots, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards in the graveyard. He should have it here, which is amazing considering where this turn started.
right. I mean, and that's what I was kind of saying before Phill dropped something earlier, but just kind of scary on both ends. Like Frank can have nothing, and then next thing you know, he's comboing off on you, and on the other end, Phill could be top decking and have all that mana, and he just draws an Ulamog and able to play it, through a early-ish middle game. So you're just never in a good spot against these decks.
Yeah, definitely some big haymakers going in either direction. Um, Frank's take the form of a long solitaire turn, and Phil's take the form of a giant Eldrazi that kills you in 2 or 3 attacks.
Yeah, the let me
Uh,
beat your face in.
yeah. Which feels worse, getting attacked by an Ulamog or watching eggs play out?
You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I'd rather be bashed in the face by an Ulamog.
I think I have the same preference, but I do think it's preference based. The eggs turns, you for the most part you're not that's not happening to you from a new player.
No, no, I don't. I couldn't imagine any of our new players trying to play this deck and run it through, especially in a well, now there's no time frame, but having a time limit and having to keep game state, I couldn't
Yep.
even imagine.
Yep. So Frank just wiped the board and appears to have passed the turn because the storm count went away.
Yeah, I
Um,
believe that was my only thought he could do. He wasn't gonna be able to kill him, so he had to realistically do that and just wipe the board.
I must have been off on the mana count. If he had one extra mana and he had that Mox Opal untapped, and if that fighting energy was representing red mana like I thought it was, I wouldn't see why he couldn't have just double grape shotted for 9 and then 10. Um, but my count has to be off.
And it looks like poor Phill just top decks another land.
That has been the story of the games that Phill has lost here. He has flooded out a bit in this tournament. I got lucky enough against him in round 2 to see a whole heck of a lot of lands and not many Eldrazi. Um, so we'll see if he's able to top deck out of this or not. As the Urza Saga is going to go dig up more than likely a Mox. I don't think there's too much left in the deck. Um, a little too late to tap that Mox Opal once you're already searching, but it appears we're going to be friendly about it.
Yeah, and honestly, looking at this Eldrazi ramp deck, it only plays 22 lands from what I'm counting in a rush here, but so not
But
as many as I
notably,
expected.
none of them are fetch lands. So 22 with no fetches adds up to a whole heck of a lot more than when you have, let's say, 7 to 10 fetches in your deck.
He does
Um,
he does actually have 4 windswept heath.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he's got so it is one shifting woodland, one Bajuka bog, one sanctum of Ugin, two stomping ground, one commercial district, four windswept heath, three basic forests, four Ugin's labyrinth, four Eldrazi temple, and one ghost quarter.
I stand corrected. Yeah, I think just some bad luck on Phil's front to be drawing into what looks like 7, 8, 9, 10 lands at this point. Although this
Right.
game has gone on for quite a while.
And I think that's without the Myco spawns even getting him additional. So I mean, that's just 10 blatant mana from what I remember.
With a kick, the microspawns always get a land, I think, and
Oh,
the
that's right. That just
kick
didn't
just
destroy.
destroys the
Yeah,
other.
that's right.
So
You're
yeah,
correct.
so at least two of those are.
So I guess technically eight of the mana.
And man, this construct's beaten in for big chunks here. Another land comes off the top for Phill, and he's going to be scooping it up.
Oh yeah, that's tough. Like I said, he was in a really good spot and kind of just Frank had the opportunity there. So let's go back to the sides and see if we're changing anything up, at least on on Phil's end maybe, or but I would assume not. Maybe the
Yeah,
Haywire might.
I think the biggest difference here would be those counter spells. How Frank, sorry, not looking at Phil's sideboard at the moment, but how Frank handles those counter spells is going to be the big change, I would imagine. As far as how play draw affects Phil's selection of which of these stay in versus which of them sorry, which of them come in versus which stay on the board for Karn the Great Creator. I'm nowhere near smart enough to make that decision.
Right. Maybe the Stone Brain is just all he brought in. I could see that. I could definitely see that. So probably nothing changing much on his end. And then I wonder if with Frank being on the draw here, I don't know if much changes for him as well. Maybe he does bring in the Swan Song for this, but I feel like the Consigned to Memory is just all he needs. But we shall see. Phil's still shuffling up here. Frank looks like he's ready to present.
Yeah, I took a look back at the Stone Brain card because that seemed to be the critical decision in that game was whether or not we went after the Underworld Breach or the Grinding Stations. I don't remember exactly the context of Frank's hand at that point, but the Stone Brain does allow them to draw cards for whichever ones you exile from their hand. So if he had multiple Underworld Breaches in hand, maybe that is why Phill chose Grinding Station there, just to prevent him from seeing more cards. Be interesting to see if that decision comes up again and if Phill changes his philosophy on it.
Yeah, I'd be curious definitely to see that as well. But it looks like Frank is back. And here we're on the way. This is the deciding factor: who's going to the ship, and who's going to get those big points towards the championship point series.
Yeah, definitely. Phill coming in and making his presence known, getting himself a couple of points already here in the semifinals, and Frank always putting up good results and chugging away at these top eights as well.
Yeah, this be huge. Phill, I mean, can just he's already missed two of them, and he can already come back in and kind of put himself in the mix for the championship point series at the end total, which we'll be doing it probably early December for the finale of the year. And then Frank just been so consistent. But the difference of first is 4 points, second is 3 points, and then these third and fourth spots they're 2 points. So huge double points there for the win.
Definitely that first place spot just puts you so far ahead of the rest of the field. Um, I don't know exactly how many of these are going to take place in a season, but it definitely seems like you have to kind of hit the quarterfinals to even stay in consideration consistently, and then you really need one of those first place spots to be able to jump um, into the running for the overall first.
Yeah, I think just getting at least one of those wins and being able to maintain. But as it keeps getting more competitive, we'll see some variety in that and
Yeah.
open it up for
And
some
so,
newer people.
for sure. So far, I don't believe any of our first place players have missed a quarterfinals either. So part of why it's so important to get a first place is that our players are putting up consistent results. So they stay 1 point ahead, uh, even if you don't make any headway by just making the top eight. You actually have to close the deal on one of these.
Right, at least getting that double. And unfortunately, somebody had to take me out in the top eight, so I definitely missed out on some some points.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
our quarterfinals match that Austin's alluding to was a heck of a grindy one. It would have been a great match to have on camera.
Yeah, the
Um,
the one deck I needed to stay away from, and it was super unfortunate. But now Jared played well, and yep, now I gotta earn my points back in the next one, so I can't be slacking.
yep, I'll try to keep you honest.
Well, if I could have beat Frank, that would have taken me away from having to play you. So I blame myself for dragging along and sucking against Frank as well.
It's just such a hard deck to play against, and Frank, despite this being his first tournament running it, is piloting it amazingly. I that last game especially, I never would have thought there had been a way back out of that, and he just went went through it like a pro. Little to no hesitation and finding exactly the right lines he needed to keep in the match.
He's got to be mentally drained at this point. I mean, we've been playing Magic. They arrived at maybe like 9:30 ish, half hour before the tournament started. Started playing at 10, and at this point it's probably close to 6 o'clock. So I mean, he's got to be drained with how you cannot let your guard down with that deck, and you're constantly having to think in those situations like he just did. It's not
Oh
like
yeah, and
it's not like you get to set your deck down and give any time. Like you're the one taking majority of it and making crucial decisions.
right, and there are little to no easy wins with this deck because you're at the mercy of what comes off the top of your deck into your graveyard, and then whenever what whenever the key pieces don't just come off the top in your first couple of mills, you have to make sure you're managing your graveyard for future considerations. You need to keep a Malevolent Rumble or an Emery or something like that around to mill more to find those in the future. And it's all just about keeping track of all those moving pieces to give yourself the best shot to storm off. Um, the Urza Saga does take some of that burden away, unlike Storm decks of old, where the plays were completely unintuitive, but those players would have to know the odds of uh, exactly what they could draw to try to combo off again in the future because they had no backup game plan. Um, but even still, Frank's doing a great job of managing what resources are going into the graveyard, which ones he's keeping around, and providing himself with that potential to combo off late into the game with very few resources in hand. All right, so off into our game three, starting off with some surveillance on Frank's side, and Phill already up to 4 mana for Eldrazi with no real plays. Um, I think I'm guessing this is a Karn the Great Creator start on his side. Um, I don't believe the Eldrazi Temple can tap for two for that, but I believe Ugin's Labyrinth can. So we're going to see a K command dealing with this Tameo and likely creating some spawns, unless he needs to dig for some future resources.
Yeah, and that's kind of to get back to your point about the graveyard piece and Frank stuff is, it's which orange is more orange. There's so many things you could pick from that are great. It's you can't. There's so many decisions to make. But it looks like Phill getting that K command countered himself.
Yep. and notably tapping Frank out here for what's likely to be a follow up of a Karn the Great Creator. This may have actually played out well for Phill. I mean, you hate to see your K command get countered, but when you can follow it up with two hate pieces, a Karn the Great Creator that then fetches for a second hate piece, that's a trade you're willing to take, I think. Looks like the player is just talking through Karn's static ability, and whether or not Karn has resolved at this point. As okay, now it has resolved, and Bill is going to go taking a look through his sideboard for which piece he wants to pull in. It'd be interesting to see if he gets a Stone Brain here. Um, we know he left at least one in the board. Soulless Jailer.
Yeah, so we did leave it inside, but should be a pretty clutch card here. But Frank just has, as we've talked about, so much hate that just a quick Nature's Claim can come in and scoop that out of there, or the Boseiju that he's got in hand right there. Another consigned to memory. Yeah, so Frank's got a lot of answers here.
Yeah, none of those exactly work on Karn itself, though, which has that static ability of the Stony Silence effect against your opponents. So while he might be able to work through what Karn goes to get, he's got to find an Unholy Heat or some Urza's Construct tokens, something to pressure that Karn as well. And as we see, once Phill gets another land or two into play, he's got plenty of gas underneath those Uggin's Labyrinth, I think. Um, so
Yeah, that's the Uggin's Labyrinth.
I think Phill looking good here for game three. But we've seen Frank pull off some amazing feats before. So
Okay, we're going up, targeting Clue. Clue goes bye bye. Taking him off that card advantage. Soulless Jailer. Yeah, I mean, this is tough spot, but Frank does have the consign. I'd be curious to see if he allows it to stick and ramps him, or if he's going to go for the consign and nope, he lets it stick.
Thought Not Seer coming down as well. Surely this one you have to counter because your consign's probably going away either way.
Right. To get that body off the board and not lose the consigned anything. So we do have the Breach and the Tameo, enough to do Tameo and I guess he already has the Tameo out. So he's got the secondary Tameo. He does have the Emery.
And that's a Boseiju in hand, I believe, as well. So Soulless Jailer not long for this world if Frank chooses to go about things that way. And he seems to have all of his colors unlocked, unlike previous games. So I don't think he needs to hold on to it. Um, yeah, if the one piece that Phill is missing here is pressure, but it's just a matter of finding enough lands that he can activate the ability on Uggin's Lab to put that pressure back in his hand.
Yeah, definitely huge. The Karn keeping Frank off of even making stacking the clues. So
Definitely. Wouldn't be surprised here to see Phill maybe go get liquid metal coating, start pinging away at some of Frank's lands. Really, I guess it just depends on what other Sinisphere.
um,
Okay.
yeah, also a great get, but I feel like it's about to fall victim to that Boseiju.
Yeah, likely, and that's not even a cast ability, so um, he doesn't have to pay three for it. He can still just proceed with the one for reduced by one because he has a legendary permanent on the battlefield as well.
Beseju, one of those cards that when it was printed, knew it was going to be good, and man, yeah, it's just been a staple in a lot of these decks. Anything that has the ability to have green.
Yeah, it's just made having artifact and enchantment hate in your deck so much easier than it was in years past. You used to have to dedicate either a card that does almost nothing in your main deck, or have 4 to 6 copies of it in your sideboard. But being able to cheat with one or two, or depending on how green heavy you are, maybe you even go up to 3 copies of Beseju in your main deck, and that allows you to just have one or two slots in your sideboard taken up. Makes deck building options a lot more flexible. It
Yeah,
would probably even see play if it said just artifact or just enchantment or just land. I forget at times that it hits lands as well, but what a versatile card.
yeah. I mean, even being able to hit the non-basic lands, that's huge. I mean, so able to just pop out some of his big lands there too if he really needed to.
Yeah, and maybe that's what Wizards of the Coast had in mind as they're printing these Eldrazi lands. Maybe they're saying, Tron has enough hate for the Tron lands themselves that they feel comfortable printing support for large Eldrazi, because they know you're not going to go 3 equals 7. You're going to go, 3 equals 6, and then a Beseju makes it 5 instead. Something like that. If we can keep up with the beautiful mind math that I'm doing there as I ramble through combinations of lands.
Yeah. And yeah, this Trinisphere is going to be huge. I mean, Phill just looks like he has this board pretty well locked down for the most part.
And thanks to those 4 Scions, next turn there's going to be a big beater on its way as well.
And he looks like he has that 7 minutes in heaven card up in the top, up in the top. Whatever the sire
Yeah,
seven
seven,
dwarves, seven.
seven something death something. I don't know.
I love how you called it the seven deadly sins.
Yeah, yep.
It's almost like the Sphaloon that couldn't
Oh yeah.
quite get.
So many interesting, powerful niche cards in Modern that it's hard to keep track of all the names of them. But man, in the decks that they are good in, they are powerhouses.
Right, when that card comes down, it just, has so much ability. Literally. I mean, it has seven abilities or whatever it has.
Yep, 7 abilities. It has protection for itself in the form of Ward 7, and um, you know, frequently you've taken some damage early from your mana base, or from smaller Eldrazi that Phill plays before that, and Ward 7 is just not an option in most cases.
That's called delinquency.
Yep, straight up degenerate.
Okay, so, oh, and we see the Myco spawn come down here. Looks like we are going to. All right, Hedge Maze goes away. I'm wondering, well, I was going to say, I wonder if it really makes a difference, but I wonder if trying to take him off. Well, I guess he's got the basic mountain. I was going to say, I wonder if taking him off red realistically would be best, but he only has the one green source, so.
Right. With a deck that has 8 Moxen in it, you're kind of hard pressed to take them off the color. Um, but I think just reducing the total number of lands is beneficial. I don't recall what Eldrazi was under that Ugin's Labyrinth previously, but I'm a little surprised that the micro spawn is what came down. Maybe we were just a mana or two short for whatever that other large Eldrazi was. Oh, excuse me. The Moxen are shut down by the Karn the Great Creator, so you can take him off of colors here. Apologies.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, and that's what my thought was. Maybe try to take out as much red as possible, and then so we can't play the breach. But
Phil may be just thinking of protecting his hate cards
right, that's probably
here.
best option. Taking out the green, so no nature's claim slash
But in a way, it
wear
does
down.
feel like, in a way, it does feel like your Karn is your greatest hate card, and Unholy Heat is the one card in Frank's deck that just one for one trades with Karn. So I kind of agree with you. Maybe it is red that you should be going for. Are those
And
both red sources?
yep.
Okay,
Oh,
so maybe
and there it
that's
is. The Ulamog. Frank didn't want to take that Ulamog to the face, so and
yeah,
we're going to the championship. So congrats, Phill, and we will see you guys back for the ship.
yeah. Great games on both sides, guys, and one more round to go here in the Cardboard Cellar Tournament Series.